Welcome to the Mama Mudra Podcast. I'm Kate Thompson-Duwe, and I believe that the wellness industry has a joy problem, so we're aiming to fix it. This podcast is where we bring in experts to challenge beliefs and tools to feel good, stay consistent, and build a life that works. Because in this community, joy is the new performance metric. Welcome to the Mama Mudra Podcast. We explore one central idea here, and that is that happiness is not something that we find once we have created a perfect life. It's something that we need to use on our journey towards finding perfection or close to perfection in life. It's the way we approach our health, our mindset, our relationships, and the way we move through the different stages of life. So each episode that I'm recording is exploring a different facet of this concept and bringing in experts in their fields. And at the heart of every conversation is the same guiding question. How do we live a life that is meaningful, that is energized and genuinely joyful? Today, we are speaking to Andrea Back, who is a longevity, menopause, nutrition, and stress management expert. And we want to explore the question that I mentioned earlier through the lens of aging and entering different stages of life. I believe strongly that we need to reframe the conversation around aging, especially for women, but this speaks to everyone that is listening. If you are a man going through this, the chances are you have a woman in your life that is entering different stages of life. If you are younger, you may know an older woman going through entering a different stage of life and the challenges that come with that. And I feel that the conversation needs to be reframed, and as opposed to focusing on loss, which I think it tends to do, loss of collagen, loss of energy, loss of memory, loss of focus. Let's rather focus on the benefits that come with getting older, which are, for me at least, confidence, caring a whole lot less about what other people think, really feeling like I know myself and I'm worrying less about what other people think. And I feel like there are so many benefits towards getting older that I really would like to discuss that with someone that deals with this on a regular basis. So, Andrea, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. I am going to jump right into it. And if you can tell me in your own words, what are the upsides of getting older?
There are a lot of upsides, I think, which a lot of the times women don't see, or they only realize them later in life. I think one upside is definitely life experience. And I think that ties in with a lot of other upsides because we experienced half a lifetime, or, I think even in our 40s, we have so much experience, and that is living proof of what we have or what we have gone through. And I think there are a lot of things that happening around that age where we, as you said already, we lose the need for validation. I think validation comes from inside. So I think internal validation is a big shift where women just don't care anymore, what people think, and they're turning inwards, and they're starting to actually prioritize themselves and not just live for the outside validation. Women starting to find a new identity. I call it the identity evolution. So from living from expectation around us, and that could be family, partners, children, parents, society, we starting to live more with alignment. So we're starting to learn what our bodies need, what we need mentally, and we start living more consciously. So I think these are definitely all upsides and a lot more.
Yeah, agreed. It's such an interesting point that you make about knowing ourselves so much better, and therefore we're able to give ourselves what we need. And thinking about it with that perspective, why do you think it has become such an overwhelmingly negative thing to be aging? Like, why and where do you think it's come from, that as opposed to us acknowledging something that powerful, that we know ourselves better, so we're probably going to be doing things more strategically, we're going to be more firm in our position on things, less, sort of wafting all over the place and not quite sure where we stand. Because of those clearly positive things, why do you think it's such a negative thing that people, especially women, but I think that's becoming actually across men and women these days, why is everyone so scared of it, and why does it have such a negative connotation, do you think?
I think aging there is an aspect of fear. It's a little bit entering the unknown. I think it's an aspect of losing purpose, depending obviously on your circumstances. But kids growing up, I think that's a really big fear of loss of purpose and what am I going to do when my kids are leaving the house. I think it's society driven. Everything is around staying young, longevity, and just, women starting to feel invisible because they're not reproductive anymore. I think that's a big thing. Even women might not want more children, but just the loss of that ability. And I remember that myself when I knew I didn't want to have any more kids, but it was quite a thing that I had to grieve over to, come to terms with it. I think that's a big thing. So, yeah, I think a lot of fear, grief, loss, and maybe not seeing what's actually out there and not understanding the opportunity it holds.
And I think also, as we spoke about before the cameras and the microphone started, is also just a mindset shift in terms of, it's become such an overwhelmingly negative concept, aging, that I actually think subconsciously we're just so programmed to be like aging, negative, lines, wrinkles, loose skin, whatever, that we actually have to actively reframe and reprogram our mindset when we think about it to acknowledge the positives, because I think we almost actually just don't, we don't consider them when we're thinking about it. And my next question is about that. One of the main things that people talk about, and I know for myself it's so prevalent, is caring less about what other people think, because you really just do. You're like, you understand how unimportant it is and what a waste of energy it is to worry about what other people think, because 9 times out of 10, when you are like, oh my God, I can't imagine what they must think of me, they're all talking about me, they're really not. They're worrying about themselves. We're all so focused on ourselves and our own experience and our own issues that we're not looking at, the other person next to us and going, oh my God, I can't believe she did that, or I can't believe she said that, or, we're just not. And so as you get older, I think that life experience that you mentioned kicks in and you realize that you don't need to care so much. So those types of things happen organically. How do you think we can encourage people to maybe bring more of that, I don't care about that because I understand it's not important, to the overall picture of aging, and be like, stop caring so much about the wrinkles around your eyes. It shows that you've laughed a lot in your life, and that's awesome. Like, stop worrying about maybe your collagen isn't where it was before because, my God, look at your brain now. Like something like that. Like, how do you think, if you could sort of impart some words of wisdom from the longevity coaching and training that you've done to people going through this that are struggling with it, what things can people do to kind of train their brains to focus more on those really cool parts of aging and not the bad parts?
So with mindset, I always try, or in coaching, you almost let people find their own answers. So you just kind of guide them to where they need to go. And mindset is, and I always believe mindset starts with really the small things. Like, you could say, to be healthy and to lose weight, I need to eat less and I need to starve and I need to be really disciplined. Or you can say, to be healthy and to carry the weight I would like to, I nourish myself, I eat healthy food, I don't restrict, but I fuel my body instead of eating less. So it's all about how you see it. And I think that goes for all those other little habits, and that goes for aging too.
Are there suggestions you could make about almost like, I don't know, tools or tricks or messages or something that people could utilize and repeat to themselves? Or I guess it's kind of like brain training, to wake up in the morning and, again, as we were discussing before everything started recording, as opposed to being like, oh, my back hurts, oh, this creaks, that, my shoulder, whatever it is. Wake up and be like, my gosh, like, this is my life today. This is what it's just a mindset shift in terms of focusing on the positive as opposed to immediately focusing on the obvious negative that most of the time there's not much you can do about. It's there, and we all have it. But also, and I mean, I have to, and I think I say this in every episode just to sort of contextualize, and I know that it's annoying to many people, but I am an eternal and intentional optimist. So this is just who I am. But I do believe that if you focus on the opportunities rather than the issues, it does make the issues easier to deal with, if you have a positive mindset. So how do you teach people to kind of, shift that mindset?
The mindset shift can be quite difficult sometimes because, not everybody, it's not easy for everyone to practice gratitude, to journal. That can be quite hard and painful at times. So I find if my clients start to actually feel better physically, eating healthier, and you start with the low-hanging fruit. So nutrition is often like the first point, and they start to feel better quite quickly. They're not feeling perfect, but they can see little results. And I always find that also impacts the mindset. So the mindset shift almost goes along with the changes in nutrition, sleep, movement, and
absolutely.
Also as you learn to manage your stress, your mindset almost shifts organically, if that makes sense.
100%. It's something that we are trying to do across these platforms with Sunshine People, the wellness events that I'm doing, and Mama Mudra, and shifting the focus to specifically with movement, but across everything, as opposed to the focus being, I want to lose weight, or I want to, minimize my sugar intake or my salt intake or my carbohydrate intake or whatever, as opposed to it being like these specific, either superficial or individual goals, make it just feeling happy and amazing, and find the things that when you do them, they make you feel good, because it's exactly that.
Yeah.
Once you focus on the feeling and you start to feel better, it becomes so much easier.
Exactly.
And you know how nice it is to feel good. So you kind of chase that more. Yeah. And then you don't think so much about like, oh God, I've got to go for a 45-minute walk to feel good. You're like, I want to go for a 45-minute walk because I want to feel great again, And it's sad how difficult that can be for many people to understand, why we should focus on being happy. It's like, it's a very interesting, I don't know, I could talk for hours about that. I find that such an interesting philosophical construct that we should just, if you look at children, they chase happiness all day, every day, naturally.
Without thinking about it.
Without thinking about it. And then all of a sudden we allow age and stress and responsibility to kind of overtake us. And then it's like happiness becomes the last thing that we find time to look for. And it's sad.
And I think it's also, community is also a big thing.
Yes.
So I find, and this is what I'm trying to also create. That was kind of my long-term vision, to really create this community of women that are all in the same boat. They all struggle with different things, but at the end of the day, it's all similar. And I've seen it in my course, when they connect with other women, they feel less alone. They realize it's not just me. A lot of women kind of suffer in silence. They don't really talk about it. They feel embarrassed. They feel ashamed. So by opening the door and showing them there are many others, and they feel the same, they will suddenly, you can see this realization in like as I do group sessions, and they say, I always thought this is just me. And they realize it's actually not just me, there are so many others. And that there's also a mindset shift that comes with that realization. And
Totally.
It's a beautiful thing to watch.
Yeah, I think it's also very much a byproduct of us getting so busy that we don't prioritize, as well as prioritizing finding happiness, we don't prioritize community and spending time. And I'm a huge, I'm terrible at that. I'm always so busy that I don't make time for socializing or friends or whatever. And then you do, and it's exactly that. You spend time with close female friends especially. There's like the things that I'm talking about, she's also talking about. We're going through the similar things. We're both struggling either with issues with kids or with husbands or with just having too much on our plate or, and you feel lighter. It's not necessarily taking anything away, but it's just sharing the load, and I feel like there used to be a lot more focus on that. And I think that's almost leading to the next question's answer. Not that I'm trying to lead the witness, as they say, and tell you what to answer, but I feel like there could be something in that, because the next question was, why do you think that society has taught women that their value declines as they age? If you look at men just become more powerful and more, just more everything, and they're revered as they get older. Not to mention that most of them look better when they get older, which drives me absolutely bloody mad. They look great with grey hair and lines on their face, and we try and fight that. But why do you think that is? I understand the reproductive, no longer being able to reproduce is undoubtedly one of those, and we can't change that because that is a primary function of a woman. But besides all of that, and understanding the value that women bring, I find it so interesting that it's just this innate belief and philosophy that people take on without question, that women decline in value and men increase in value with age. Why do you think that is? And do you think that maybe that more of a focus on community, as we said just now, could positively impact that? Because I think that maybe if we encourage one another more to believe that we're increasing in value, and maybe it's just a shift in value, that could probably change that somewhat.
I believe there are a lot of things that come into play. I think the media is a big part. It's very youth-driven, be young. I think it's the beauty industry, because, it's sales go up if you can use something that makes you look younger. I think those two are really big drivers of spreading that fear of getting older. The reproductive side, as we mentioned already, I think it's also lack of education around menopause. For years, and we are in that generation, when we went through perimenopause, nobody was talking about it. And as we said earlier, we didn't even realize it was happening. I think today there's a lot more out there. It's almost become a bit of a trend, but it's an important conversation, and it really, I think, helps women to make that shift and feel it's okay to feel like this. It's okay to ask for help, and I'm not alone. Hopefully with this shift happening, things will change, and women are finding the courage to really live the life on their terms and shedding the conditioning and the expectations. But I think that because the expectations becoming less as we get older, there's less caregiving in terms of children, and there's also something that happens when we lose our estrogen. We almost lose that buffer to tolerate stress and all the things on our plate that we have to deal with. And that's a good thing. And I think that we are on a good path, for change.
I agree. I hope that it's not just a trend, as you said. I know that it's a trend now, that it's becoming more spoken about, but I hope that it doesn't disappear like a trend does, because
I don't think so. I think women really are taking or keeping their power. I always say, you're not you always had the power, but you always almost gave it away when you're younger. And when you get older, you actually reclaiming it. Yeah.
Yeah, because I want I've got 2 daughters and a son, and I really want my daughters growing up to, I feel like there's such a focus on entering puberty, and that's very obviously, widely spoken about. It needs to be, because they're children, they need, guidance and education and everything. But it as you say, it's never, I think I literally only discovered perimenopause, that it even was a thing, probably a year or 2 before I entered it. I didn't know. It was kind of just this thing that was just there, and you knew it was going to happen one day, but you didn't really know when in life. We weren't very educated. I'm sure you were probably more educated than most, but most women, there's this huge just sort of question mark hanging over that stage of life. And I think about it in context of my children and their friends, and, you want to grow up knowing these important milestones, and also not just from an expectation perspective, but a health perspective. How do you work towards nutritionally, strength-wise, et cetera, navigating this period of your life as well as possible. And then obviously there's also the approach towards, you touched on it earlier, children growing up and needing you a lot less, potentially even moving out of home at that time. You're probably changing careers or shifting focus and maybe finding other side hustles or something like that. It's a time of such transition because you're getting to know yourself better. How do you think women especially can try and, again, with the reframing, see this as opportunities and exciting as opposed to fear-based things? I think as much as we talk about women gaining confidence with age, they also gain a lot of fear around change. And they feel like, oh, no, I'm too old to do that. I can't do, I couldn't possibly, which is completely the opposite. What would you suggest to women that are facing these transitional things that are happening in their lives? And how can they see them as an opportunity and something to be really excited about? Because realistically, to go into something new at this stage of your life, you're probably going to be bloody good at it, because you are that much more mature and wise and, confident, as opposed to being nervous about it.
I think there is that mind shift that needs to happen. And I think that often happens actually by itself at a certain point, for some earlier than for others. But yeah, education is, I think, number one, and showing women that this is a new transition, this is a recalibration, and it's not a decline. It's a reset in the body to learn to live without or with less of the hormones we have, and that this is also not forever. That some women think they're going to feel like this for the rest of their lives, and there is light at the end of the tunnel. It takes longer for some than for others, but really showing them that it's time to prioritize ourselves and not to dwell in self-pity and frustration and sadness, but to actually see what is out there and starting to do the things that make us feel good, that serve us, that nourish us, and also pick our battles to be a little bit more selective with our energy. Not everything needs a reaction, and to learn. Yeah, and I think that comes with the wisdom we were talking about. By having those life experiences, we realize we don't need to do everything. We don't need to be perfect. I think perfection is also a problem that can lead to, I need to do it all, and it all needs to be perfect. So yeah, just letting go of those we think we need to do, of those kind of tasks that we think we have, and to say, you know what, today I'm only halfway through my to-do list, but that's okay. I can do the rest tomorrow or next week. Doesn't always have to happen today.
As you say, prioritizing ourselves is key. And you get to the stage that you feel like it's okay to do so. I used to, when I used to think about trying to do that, the guilt that comes with that is ridiculous. Oh my God, how could I possibly be, like prioritizing myself? And even if you do something for yourself while you're doing it, you're thinking, oh, this is, you shouldn't be doing this. My God, you've got so many other things to do. Now it's just like, sorry, my phone's off. This is what I'm doing today, and I'm quite happy about it.
And the guilt can be massive. I had a client, she would go grocery shopping and she would sit in the car and nap. And I said to her, but why don't you nap at home? She said, no, I could never do that. I feel so guilty. And, that's where change needs to happen, to feel, not to feel that guilt, because I think men, and I don't want to...
I was just going to say.
They just going to go and have a nap and they don't even think about it.
As they should.
Yeah.
It's
exactly.
okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
So to give yourself the permission to actually do what your body needs, what your mind needs, and not to feel guilty about it.
Agreed. There is, of course, also very much a nutrition and supplementation and hormonal side to aging. So as much as we're talking about mindset shift and all of those things, which I do believe are incredibly important, what are the things that you recommend that women do from the perspective of nourishing their bodies and trying to give our changing bodies what they need during that phase of sort of 40s to 50s and beyond? I know it's very specific and we're past the stage of just doing a general sort of, hormone creams and HRT programs and you'll be fine. But are there certain things, I know that weight training is always mentioned in terms of trying to minimize the risk of osteoporosis and all of those things, but are there things from a nutritional and supplementational perspective that you would recommend as a general thing that women should focus on more as they get older to try and make that transition phase a little bit easier?
So it's quite interesting. A lot of women will always say, what can I take? And I don't believe there's anything that you can take to make it better, like a supplement. Or it starts really with nutrition. And my approach is blood sugar balancing. For many reasons, and this is probably not enough time to really explain it, but blood sugar balancing is a way of eating that covers a lot of other aspects. It's also anti-inflammatory. It will make you lose weight because you're eating the right things. And what happens in menopause is that your insulin sensitivity goes up. So it's really important to eat according to, or keep your blood sugar at bay. So nutrition is number one, in my opinion. There are supplements that can be taken, but it always depends on if you're actually deficient of something, because otherwise you're just producing expensive urine. So you actually need to have your blood tested, or you need to know where am I not getting enough through the food, but to get it through the food is always number one. Then stress management, and we already covered a lot of that, mindset, taking time off, prioritizing, and not thinking I have to do it all today. And then obviously there are some stress management practices like breath work, meditation, journaling, sleep. And sleep is a big one.
And that often gets disrupted with menopause.
So many women struggle with that.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of... There's a protocol or a strategy that one can do. So a lot of people, obviously, they're on their phones till late. They don't have consistent bedtimes, which is super important. But I can also see that that's also a shift that happens organically often, because we realize we can't operate on 6 hours of sleep anymore. And so women do start to prioritize that. But there's the famous 3 o'clock in the morning wake up. So it's not so much falling asleep, it's more staying asleep. And that can be really tough and really disruptive, and often it's hard to go back to sleep. But starting to become healthy, your sleep will improve automatically. And if you stick to some kind of sleep hygiene, make your room dark, cancel out all the noise, go to bed early without your devices, read a book. So that all helps. And it doesn't all have to happen tomorrow. I always say start with one habit, do it for a week, and then maybe add another one. Otherwise, it's not sustainable. Yeah, so sleep is really, really important. And there is also a big mindset shift where people would brag on, oh, I can function on 5 hours. Now, people really prioritize sleep and they understand the value. There's so much more research and science on sleep. And movement. And it doesn't have to be, weight training, strength training is great, but, walking is amazing. So it doesn't always have to be what the internet is telling us if that's not what I have the capacity for right now. So it's a build up as well. We start slowly. I've got clients that haven't exercised in 12 years since they had a child, for example, and so then, you start slowly, walk around the block. And then you walk a little bit more the next day. And, a client that I had a few years ago, she called me like a year later after we kind of finished her sessions. And she said, you're not going to believe this, I signed up for the gym.
Wow.
And she was like so stoked. It was like a really big turning point in her life. So and sometimes it takes a year to get to that
totally
point.
It's exactly as you said earlier. It's that prioritizing yourself in every aspect, the sleep, the movement, the stress management. It's just understanding what it is that you need and understanding, even though I asked the question about sort of a generalized approach, understanding that there isn't a generalized approach. So stay on top of your bloods, your hormone levels, all of those things, and understand what your program needs to look like. So to end with our last question, because we've touched on so many different aspects of the conversation, and it's so funny because when we started this episode, I had made quite a concerted decision to not mention menopause, and I think we've now mentioned it about 100 times. But it's the discussion, and it is the most prevalent transition that women go through as they age. And today the episode is, of course, more focused on what women experience with aging. So to end the series of questions, I just wanted to ask one thing. If you had one perspective, one piece of advice, one nugget of wisdom to share with younger women, knowing that they're going to go through this, maybe not anytime soon, but at some stage in the future, what would be the thing that you would say to them? Is it sort of a mindset shift? Is it a don't be scared, is it I don't know, sort of just know yourself so well that when it's starting? Because even with some of your answers today, I always tell people that I didn't even know when I was going through menopause, but then every now and then people will say things. I'm like, oh, wait, I did have that. I just didn't put two and two together and realize that, what was happening when it was happening. So is it a case more of just being very comfortable with yourself and what your body does and, needs and feels? What would that one thing be that you would say to someone in their 20s or 30s, knowing that it's coming, probably 30s, because in your 20s you don't think anything's ever going to happen to you? What would that one thing be to kind of make it less scary?
It would probably be that the healthy habits that we install, let's say in our 30s, that will give us the resilience in our 50s. So whatever we start to do before it happens will really help us to get through not only menopause, but for the rest of our lives. And even now in my 50s, what I do now will help me to feel good in my 70s. So it's a little bit of looking forward and also to listen to our bodies. And if something that we hear on Instagram doesn't feel good, then it's probably not good. So really, to be intuitive and to listen and to understand the language our body speaks.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here today. It was so interesting, and I hope so useful to everyone listening and watching. And if there's one thing that you take away from this episode, or one reason that you share it with a woman that you're close to and thinks could benefit from it, it's that there's no formula for living well. And I really want that to be the thing that people take out of all of these episodes, is that it's all about finding your pathway, and what works for you isn't going to work for someone else, for me, for the woman next to me. It's so individual. And the more we get to know ourselves, the easier it's going to be to navigate that pathway. So there are many things that we go through that are common and similar, but the way that we go through them is going to be different. So what, I think the real journey is to understand your own biology, your mindset, know your history, know how you like to feel and how your body tends to feel when it's operating well, and understand the things that genuinely make you feel good, and know again that happiness isn't something that you're working towards finding when you've got everything aligned. Happiness should be the driver that gets you to a place of alignment. So try and wake up and focus on happiness. And if you enjoyed this episode, please like it, share it, tell everyone about it, and we'll see you next time. If this episode shifted something with you, share it with someone who needs it. Because the wellness industry doesn't change from the top down, it changes through conversations like these. So like, subscribe, and stay close. We're not chasing wellness anymore. We're redefining it through joy. See you next week.